and welcome back to Wild Wednesday. I am Tony Dean. I am in the captain's chair. We don't have Scott Schweitz. We don't have Shara Sheely. We do have Derek Felska, State of Hockey News.
Thank you very much.
Glad to have you here, especially it's so appropriate being that this time last year we used our computers via the interweb and we taped this elaborate draft podcast where we broke down exactly what we believed would take place, and then most of the stuff that you thought would take place did, and most of the stuff that I thought would take place did not. So then I was like, I have to seek this gentleman out to talk about the draft, especially since we have the Bennett's draft show coming up here
on the 26th.
The 26th, Friday.
It's Friday, 7 to 9 p.m. We got great specials here at Bennett's, Coors Light specials. We're going to go 2-for-1 burgers. Bennett's is going to offer some great specials. So come on out. There's a band going to come out, start at 10 o'clock. So if you get here during the draft party, there's going to be no cover. But if you get here after 10 for the band, there's going to be a cover. So show up for the draft party and celebrate some fun stuff, have some good food and some good music.
And what a great opportunity to be in the building while the draft is taking place and just have a host of people. Besides Derek, I also have asked Allie Baker to show up. I know Patrick and Sarah will be here that night, and Joe Bennett will be in the building.
Lord Schweitz will be here, too.
Yes, Lord Schweitz.
He'll be in the house. And the idea of the draft show, too, is, wear your favorite team jersey. I mean, obviously you might get beat up, but wear your jersey and then come hop on the mics when your team is on the clock, talk about your team, just give everyone an opportunity to talk about their team, the Wild, or whoever, just not the Blackhawks.
And what a great opportunity to get down here on West 7th during the draft, see what's taking place, because I have a distinct feeling that this year, in addition to the young players that are being selected and having their hockey futures dictated to them via the draft and who trades and who selects them, I have a feeling that there's going to be a lot of player movement at this year's draft, just because the way that the league is positioned right now, there's a lot of teams that need cap relief. There's a lot of teams that
between this and next year, there's going to be I think it was over 20 teams that were going to be in some kind of cap crunch. So there's going to be a lot of people wanting to horse trade, and that should make for an interesting environment, especially in a draft that, by most accounts, is said to be pretty strong.
And the other just huge prevailing thought that I had is when Mike Yeo has some seniority, when he's high up on the seniority list, as with regard to his tenure here, that means that these other organizations are bringing in new coaches, they're bringing in new administrations, and it's no different from when we had Risebrough and Lemaire on the way out, and we had Fletcher and it was our gopher guy, Todd Richards.
Todd Richards, yeah.
We had Todd Richards and Fletcher coming in here. You inherit these players, your opinion, your evaluation, the way that you project them to be this season and beyond is going to be different from the previous regime. And a lot of talk about who could move and shake during the draft is these markets where they've had replacements. So you have Brendan Shanahan in Toronto, and that seems to be like a hotbed of they not only could they take advantage of teams that are kind of in cap jail because they have some space, but they also have these players who are definitely talented but much maligned there. I mean, Toronto's like the mecca. That's the hockey center of the universe in Canada. And you have guys like Phil Kessel and Dion Phaneuf who are just, for whatever reason, they're kind of the Mikko Koivu. Wild fans will get the reference of that market, in that you either hate them or you love them. There's no in between. They get all the praise and they have all the potential, or they're the problem. They're the goat. They're the whipping boy.
I would say that I think there's in Toronto, not to want to talk too much about the Maple Leafs, but in Toronto, I think they really just want to start from scratch. And there's a lot of still things that hung over from when Burke was there and things like that, and they really want to start from scratch. And Shanahan, being a guy, especially out of the Detroit system, wants to build through the draft, because for so long Toronto has been a void in terms of bringing up young talent. They've either traded picks away. Sure. They've had so many drafts where they've had 3 or 4 picks, and it's impossible to build when you're trying to predicate it on just 4 guys.
And they've used their stature to bring in these middle of the road veteran signings,
and they haven't and they haven't really clicked that well, if at all. They've failed to launch, and then they've stumbled. And with a market that demands excellence, that also expects futility, it's rough. It's rough because it's the biggest microscope in all of the league, really.
So let's talk about the NHL draft and what it means for the Minnesota Wild. This year, the Minnesota Wild made the playoffs. They made the second round, but they were a wild card seed, if you will.
Yeah.
So that means that they end up middle of the pack, drafting number 20 overall. And then this year will be the first year in a couple years that we'll also have a second round pick, which is going to play a part into what they try to accomplish here, because this draft is going to be multi-tiers. And when I say multi-tiers, that means there's going to be tiers of players in the first round, in the second round, and probably through about the fourth round that have different talent levels, different abilities, different ceilings as a player. I don't know if we're going to say potential or, upside. I know upside's your favorite word.
Yeah, sound a little bit like Mel Kiper there.
Sure.
But I think what you see in the draft is your first 11 guys are people that are really kind of people that are franchise stars that a team can really transform itself. After those top 11, then it gets to guys that are more contributors, more, your second line type of guys that they'll be decent players, but they won't have that transformative kind of effect. And obviously you have your generational talent at the top two, which is, of course, been the talk basically for the last year and a half.
And so when you say generational talent in the top two, we're meaning Connor McDavid, who's going to go number 1 to Edmonton.
Yep, without question.
Who have a great chance to just fuck him up. And I'm not supposed to drop the F word because I had somebody mention that to me.
Wyatt, click explicit content.
Yes. But the reason I use that word so strongly is that no organization in my lifetime has had more top draft picks and done so little with them.
Yep.
I mean, we're not.
They've had tremendous fortune in the lottery. I mean, you couldn't ask for it too many times. I mean, 3 in a row, and none of those have really turned out that well. And I think,
and they all look like they have game-breaking, top-tier talent. It just has not translated, and it's like there's something in, like the ice is murkier in Edmonton, or the attitude, or
the ice does suck now worse in Edmonton. That's actually a fact.
And
it used to be the best. Now it's the worst.
Yeah, and so you have again this year they're gonna get the number 1 pick, and it matters. It completely matters. There's some. In the NFL, there's so much parity, and there's different positions, and you have different impacts. In the NBA, and more specifically in the NHL, probably the NBA a little bit more, but in the NHL, having the number 1 pick over the number 4 pick, the number 8 pick, the number 9 pick.
It's a huge difference in talent.
Complete difference.
And impact.
Day one impact.
Yep.
Like day one of this kid's pro career
will be in Edmonton. There's no question about it. But that's also why, you hear all the adjectives about him in terms of being a player that is a transformative type of player, like a Crosby, an Ovechkin, and that's why it was such a big deal talking about who was going to end up with that pick.
The tank for McDavid.
Oh, yeah. I even embraced it. I even said that in January when the Wild were horrible. I said, this is actually a pretty good year to be bad if you're going to be bad.
Wow. And if you look at it, literally the player that the Wild needs is McDavid. Like
McDavid or an Eichel. Yeah, for sure.
And maybe even more so McDavid, because you need a size skill center, top 6 guy. That's what you're lacking. And Eichel's kind of a tweener, so I think he's a center wing do-it-all guy. He's a puck possessor.
Yeah.
I equate his talent to like Patrick Kane.
Jonathan Toews is that's what I think he's like.
You think Jonathan Toews?
I think he's a lot like Jonathan Toews because he's a player that has a lot of two-way ability.
Do you think he plays center in the NHL?
I don't know. That's going to be the difference that he has between him and Toews, but I think he's that kind of a presence, and there's a lot of leadership within him. I mean,
sure.
He went to the World Championships, as a kid basically a freshman in college, and not only did he look like a guy who was a veteran. I mean, he totally looked like he belonged with all the NHL talent that was there. I mean, you couldn't, unless someone, didn't know, if you didn't know who the people were and what league they were playing in, you would have swore he was an NHL player. I mean,
and being
that's
honest,
how ready he is.
Being honest about it, I find myself more an Eichel guy than a McDavid guy. Not that I don't acknowledge that McDavid is probably like the top player in this draft, but I just love that this Eichel kid, he mixes it up. I mean, he's the type of kid, he'll have the puck. He's so gifted. He's so aggressive. He's so talented. You can just see it affects the confidence of the players around him.
Yeah.
And these are like Division I college kids. These are national championship, like, best young players in the world. And just him with the puck, you can just tell that these kids are nervous. Yeah. It affects them. They expect the worst thing to happen, and then it does. I mean, he's a kid that's all payoff, and he doesn't take a shift off. He hits. I mean, it was stark to see who'd they get knocked off by. Boston University got knocked off by the national champion.
They got beat by Providence.
And that Providence team, they went out there and they killed themselves. But Eichel, the entire game, even though his team was getting shocked, even though they had turned the tides on them, every shift that Eichel played, he was making an impact. Even if he didn't have the puck, he was hitting somebody. He was trying to create a turnover. I mean, this is a 200-foot kid.
Oh, no question. And the one thing, even when he was playing in junior last year, when he was with the U.S. national development team, I mean, that line of him, Milano, and Tuck were just unbelievable. Yeah. And he was really, I mean, as much as Milano dazzled with kind of the dangle here and there, you had Eichel was really the force that he was the one that really was stirring the drink. I mean,
100%.
I mean, really, Tuck, all he had to do was kind of stand near the front of the crease and wait for the puck, because Eichel would get it there, and if he wasn't, he was using him as a screen to snipe the goalie. I mean, he has all the ability in the world, and yeah, that's great for Buffalo.
Yes.
Congratulations.
And being honest about it, Buffalo is another team too. They have a GM takeover from previous regime. You had Darcy Reguer there, right?
Yep, Darcy Reguer for a number of years.
And now you have Murray.
Yep.
And Tim Murray. It's Tim Murray, right?
I believe, yes.
And so now you have Tim Murray, because it's Brian Murray.
Brian Murray's kid. Yep.
Yes. And so now you have Tim Murray there, and Tim Murray, in a lot of ways, you can compare him to Chuck Fletcher, because he grows up in the business. He has the pedigree. They both grow up the kids of hockey personnel legends, as I'm doing air quotes.
Yep.
But I really consider Cliff Fletcher just like one of the best ever.
And they grew up doing the grunt work. They started off as scouts. They started off as mid management. So
as personnel geeks. Yeah. I mean, they're geeks.
Yeah, they were brought up in the system. If you could say, just like a hockey player being brought up to be like his parent or his dad.
Sure.
It's the same thing with this executive. I mean,
so now there's this connection between these two franchises.
Yep.
The Minnesota Wild and Buffalo, being that
they're both Florida guys or both Anaheim guys.
Both Anaheim guys, but beyond that, every trade deadline, these two teams have been linked, and it's because Buffalo finds themselves in the same position that the Minnesota Wild found themselves in, having a bunch of like bogged down veteran talent that you have to piece it together. And previous to Tim Murray being there, you had Lindy Ruff, and I would equate Lindy Ruff to Jacques Lemaire. Not that they're completely like the same type of styles, but they're both guys that had these long runs. They had systems, they had system players, and they developed the brand of hockey around them. And then as soon as you depart from that and you remove that coach, then you have a clean slate. And what's going on in Buffalo is very reminiscent of what's taking place here in Minnesota Wild. And now for them to have Eichel, to add that to the Reinhart kid, to have Ennis, to have
Ristolainen.
I mean, Ristolainen, Zadorov, all their blue line is unbelievable. And then they were able to get Evander Kane and Zach Bogosian out of Winnipeg.
Yep.
I mean, I think they killed them in that deal.
Hudson Fasching is kind of a throwaway pick with for Braden McNabb with the Kings.
How do you get Hudson Fasching for nothing?
After his phenomenal freshman year.
And their blue line there, it's the biggest and skilled and youngest coming up.
Yep.
The Wisconsin kid. You know the Wisconsin?
Jake McCabe.
Jake McCabe is maybe the best one out of that group, and nobody knows about Jake McCabe.
Oh, yeah.
And
it's great talent.
Yes.
Key to our gold in the juniors in Russia that year.
That Buffalo team is going to be so scary good, and it's going to come. And you add Eichel to it, and that's what comes with doing a rebuild and committing to it.
But of course, there's one really major difference between the Wild and the Buffalo, is the Wild have never been willing to be absolutely awful.
Sure.
We've tried to somehow find a middle way where we can somehow develop young guys but not be so bad that we're out of the playoff picture. We've never been willing to be just absolutely awful like Buffalo has basically for the last 2 seasons.
Sure.
And because of that, obviously, I think, it has to do with the contracts that you signed. We just weren't willing to, it was built to win now.
Yeah.
And so you're trying to serve 2 masters in Minnesota, and I think that's something, it's really difficult to get the payoff because, like we just talked about, if you're not getting in that top 11, then you're not going to get a guy that's going to be a game changer. You're going to get a guy that is going to be a good contributor, maybe, and that's if you pick the right guy.
Sure.
Which is never a guarantee. As the Wild know, first round busts, they know how to pick the wrong guy way too often.
Pouliot, Thelen,
Puma, Shepard. It goes on and on. That was such a void.
Gillies.
And there's still, and to be quite honest with you, there's. Oh yeah.
and Pierre was talented, but he just wasn't what.
Only if he has one guy to pass to that can score a lot of goals like Brian Rolston.
You know what? Pierre-Marc Bouchard wasn't a bust. He just had inflated stats, and nobody could see through the bullshit. As soon as he wasn't playing with Gabrick.
Well, he was a one. Well, as soon as he wasn't playing with Rolston, that's really the key.
Rolston or Gabrick.
Rolston was the shooter that would have allowed him to
so was
set
Gabrick.
up work.
Gabrick was on the other end of a lot of those passes, being honest about it. So when you have Rolston and Gabrick, and you end up being their primary distributor, you end up with these inflated stats.
Yep.
And so he wasn't a bust, but he wasn't the player that they signed because they gave him this contract that everybody was like, oh, they fucked up. That's 2. That's only 2. That's only 2, but they both applied.
Yeah.
Now we all have PTMBS, right, Tony?
Yeah.
Post-traumatic Pierre-Marc Bouchard syndrome.
Yes. And you know what's so crazy is that when I think it directly applies to Mikael Granlund, because when you see a guy that talented, but then he goes through concussion stuff and he disappears kind of when people lean on him, and he's just like Pierre-Marc Bouchard, he's a perimeter player. Yeah, and he struggles to stay on his skates.
Yep.
And
he withers when you start to get physical with him.
And he's had a rough transition to the NHL, being able to find space.
Yeah,
but he's also flashed a couple different times where in a tight space he's able to create like these genius
great
moments.
Opportunities. Yep.
And so this offseason, I really hope that he works with, whether it be Teemu Selanne or somebody else in his home country of Finland. I hope he works on being able to create from tight spaces, being able to do the things where he scores that goal where he's completely stretched out and wraps it around the goalie.
Yeah,
where
he's pulling like a Bobby Orr.
Yeah, where he has this like no-look spin pass to Parisi in the back door. Because that's what's going to get him over. That's what's going to get him to that next level.
Well, I think part of that, some of the things that'll help him, especially in terms of finding guys, is he's got to shoot the puck when he has his chances. When he shoots the puck, then the teams have to respect him. Just like Koivu. Everyone's going to back off because it's like, well, you're probably still going to try to pass.
And for both of those guys, both of those Finnish centers, they put the shift on. It's the David Ortiz. I didn't do it that time.
Nope.
You're close.
It doesn't matter. Once we pop the cherry, we can't go back.
I know.
Yeah, that's true.
It's the David Ortiz shift where the entire infield comes all the way to the left of second base because they know there's just no shot. There's no shot that Mikko Koivu or Mikael Granlund are going to take that shot. They're looking to pass, and it's a mentality, and I'm not even saying that they need to change their entire game, but when the entire league shades you to pass, you need to fix it.
Yeah, and no offense to us who blog in the world, but I mean, if we notice it, any NHL coach worth anything is going to notice that.
No doubt.
So I mean, it's not exactly like a genius observation or revelation of any kind.
Although I'm always proud of myself. Let's just be clear that I am always proud of myself.
Yeah, he doesn't mind tooting his own horn.
No.
But, while we're on the Koivu subject,
sure.
Tony, can you get into a little bit of this trade talk you've been talking about here?
Yeah. So the overall Koivu situation, I think the last couple summers, Michael Russo has mentioned that it'd be a good time to look at seeing if you can move Mikko Koivu. And he said it before, he said it at the end of the season last year, and then he mentioned it again this year. And whenever he does mention it, he gets destroyed by the fancy stats people just because Mikko Koivu translates
very well for possession stuff.
To possession stuff, but then also limiting the shots against and the goals against when he's on the ice, which means when Mikko Koivu is on the ice for the Minnesota
Wild, you're getting
Wild,
shots for, but not many shots against.
You're providing the opportunity to the opponent a lot less, which usually translates to more victories, more consistency in success. So I completely, and I even came around this year. Like, I've written a lot of Mikko Koivu trashing articles until this year because
I haven't stopped. I'll just be honest.
No doubt.
I like Koivu. I'm not a hockey expert or a blogger or anything, but I think he's a stud. And, he shows up in a lot of ways that he doesn't.
Except the playoffs.
Yeah, well, he has
every single year.
Everybody needs a break.
Nice. And he just takes it when we need him the most.
But
proud of you.
But you need those people that are going to get in there, get gritty. He's a big guy, and I'll tell you real quick here. When I became a Mikko Koivu fan is when I watched him and Rudy, Zach Parise, skate down the ice together, and Mikko just towers over him. He's this big dude, and I'm not a hockey expert, but I'm a fan. But it seems like all Minnesota fans just hate Koivu, so I'm surprised there's all that backlash when they were talking about trading him.
Well, and so there tends to be two camps, right? And I've previously been in one camp that Derek resides in, and that's why he was like, I don't care
right now.
I don't care at all about your Mikko Koivu story. You can go to the fucking yourself.
Yeah, he gave me the eye roll pretty big. I was like, I'm gonna hurry this up here.
You're fine. It's fine.
Like, cool story, bro.
Yeah.
Yes. But
wonderful.
There's another camp that I'm in that you have to have a guy that's a skill size guy like Mikko Koivu, especially if you're going to compete with these Western Conference teams. And the reason I say that is a guy that I appreciate a lot, and I think he's a smart guy, is J.R. Devine from Hockey Wilderness. And he puts out this lineup of what he would do next year if the Wild choose to stand pat and not do it. And the fourth line has Justin Fontaine and Jordan Schroeder and I think he had like Michael Karanin on there. And I'm like, that is the softest, that is the tiniest.
It's pretty meek.
It's basically like Michael Granlund is Peter Pan, and then everybody else is like the stars around him when he.
It's like having Tinkerbell.
When Tinkerbell pops up, like you have the most skilled, most fast, like easily to like. You could just have any goon. You could have John Scott. He would just hold on to a guy, just lift him up off the ice. Like Michael Karanin is Michael Granlund light. You know what I mean? I mean,
he shoots even less,
and he's talented, and he's a playmaker. But man, he's like 134 pounds.
How can you be lighter than Granlund?
I'm saying, and he is.
Wyatt's Baron Granlund.
Wyatt can start fires with his mind. Though.
Wyatt would beat Granlund in a fight. I swear to God.
I always hedge my bets with Wyatt because I know if anybody's gonna burn down your house because of shit you said on the podcast, that's a different one, and that's one for that one.
Yeah.
It might just be Wyatt, and he would start it with his mind, so you can never forensically tie him to the crime.
We're not really sure if Scott's in a meeting or if Wyatt offed him in the back room.
Yeah,
he's like that movie, Men with Sheep or whatever.
Scott definitely owed some. On that note, why don't we just go to a break, right? Like when you accuse a guy of being able to start a fire with his mind, then you go to a break.
You should go to a break.
You should, because that's what he wants to do.
Off the rails. Is that recorded? Oh, is that recorded? Yes, it is. So scared right now.
Okay, can you guys shut up for a second?
This is Scott Schweitz, and you are listening to Wild Wednesday.
This is Sarah Sheely. You're listening to Wild Wednesday on the Alive and Social Network.
I'm Tony Dean from HockeyBuzz.com. This is a Wild Wednesday on the Alive and Social Network.
Patrick Disher, and you're listening to Wild Wednesday on the Alive and Social Network.
I just was handed an urgent news story.
Oh, my God.
Here we go. It's Bennett's Happy Hour, which I was going to actually piggyback off my staggering effect earlier. Coors Light gives you the staggering effect if you have one too many, and then you can call up Blue and White, and they'll bring you on home. But 250 Coors Lights and all domestic bottles from 3 to 6 at Bennett's, 250 Rails, 350 Calls, 450 Cosmos, and $5 sliders and martinis.
450 Cosmos and martinis.
And the martinis are up on the board in front of me. And honest to God, I feel like I'm at an ice
There's
cream.
over 30 of them.
I'm in an ice cream shop because I'm seeing things like red velvet cake and vanilla sky and truffalini and mint chip cake. That sounds good. So come on in and enjoy happy hour from 3 to 6. I did see on the board up there voted number 1 happy hour in 7th.
It is.
All right.
For 9 years running.
There we go. I like it.
What would you do if you weren't afraid?
The song makes me cry every time, Tony. We had Kat Perkins out at the Twin Cities Hit Show out at the Chart House on last Thursday night, and we recorded this on the podcast. Just kind of wanted to talk a little bit about Twin Cities Hit Show, Rusty Gateby. Everybody should check it out. It's a fun little entertainment show. They talk about movies, they talk about sports, they talk about everything. So check them out at TwinCitiesHitShow.com. But enough with this. We're back to the Wild.
Who is that? So that's this is Kat Perkins, right?
Kat Perkins from The Voice.
Very, very talented. And then they have Chuck Gallup on there, and then
former cop
Miss Shannon, right?
Yep, Miss Shannon.
They had the police chief on from Roseville today, and it was a really good show. What was interesting is that they kind of addressed different topics having to do with law enforcement, and I was very interested to see how the chief handled himself, and he was I think his name is Hartwig. I think it's Chief Hartwig. I apologize if I got his name wrong, but I thought he was
very articulate.
I thought he was articulate, but I also thought he was very honest. And I think that I know the Roseville Police Department and the city of Roseville to be just a great place. You know, I'm a St. Paul kid, but Roseville's one of those suburbs that they embrace the cities and they really they use it to their advantage. You know, a lot of the families in Roseville, they turn over their houses. You know, the parents live there for a lifetime, and then the kids live there. And you know, just my experience, the Roseville Police Department, one of the best in the Twin Cities. And,
definitely. Well, if you want to check that out and listen to that interview, just go to TwinCitiesHitShow.com. They're on Facebook, they're on Twitter, and also Rusty hosts Twins Tuesdays out at Floyd's on Tuesday night. So check that out too. But
which was a great. They just had their first 90-degree day and they gave away free beer.
Yeah,
what's better than that?
I know,
right?
It was a nut house out there. They have like 45 tap lines, and their deal every year is they first 90-degree day, it's free beer till it's fried, and then they clean all those lines and get all fresh beer starting. So if you go out to Floyd's today, you're going to get fresh. Every keg's going to be perfectly fresh. So, but we don't care about Floyd's. We're here at Bennett's. We love Bennett's. How was your burger, Derek?
Oh, it's delicious, man. Bison burger, provolone cheese with
house-cut fries.
Oh, yeah, a ton of fries.
Yeah, Wyatt just ordered his traditional lobster burger over there, so he's probably loving that up. But
he's far more highbrow than any of us.
No, I think he would bison burger. You better get it right. Wyatt will set you on fire with his mind.
I know.
Oh, the black and blue.
The black and blue today. Well, we'll get a full report from Wyatt here when he eats it. But Derek had the bison burger.
Yep.
I like the Big Mac. That's my favorite. Or the Big Ben, excuse me.
I was going to say the Big Mac.
It's exactly like a Big Mac, but made, by a chef like Joe Bennett, who knows what the hell he's doing.
Yeah, with actual meat as opposed to filler and a bunch of other stuff.
Right, it's so good. Thousand Island dressing on there. You get the pickles, the onion, sesame seed bun. It's amazing. I come in for lunch a lot because they give burgers for like super cheap during lunchtime.
So what's so great about having Derek here is that Derek does the work. And when I say does the work, it means when it comes to the draft and when it comes to knowing exactly how it's going to play out and who is going to be available when the Wild is on the clock at number 20, I will always defer to you, sir, because you do the work. I mean, you have a binder over there, and in the binder, not only does it have every single kid that's probably eligible, but then it has multiple things that have to do with what this kid brings to the table, his experience, his statistics, and then scouting perspectives. And I think what's so unique about the NHL draft is that these kids play all over the world. They play in every corner of the world. They play in every corner of Canada. They play college. They play high school. They play juniors, which...
for the most of us here, we never have a chance to see it.
No.
You know, unless you got your own independent fortune to drive hundreds and hundreds of miles to some prairie town in Manitoba or things like that, you're not going to be able to get to these places, and they do the legwork. And I think one of the keys, if you're looking at scouting kind of things, whether it's ISS or whatever, is that you don't just go to one. You look at any person that's a researcher. You look at multiple sources because, you know, one person might see it one way, and if you only see through that one prism, then I think you're kind of missing the picture. You need to look at them all.
You're being driven.
Oh yeah.
You're not driving. You're being driven.
Yep.
I think that's such a great point. You know, you have. You have Michael Russo, and I think Michael Russo is the premier for developing a relationship, having the access to the players, and then being able to paint a narrative about what's taking place now, how it affects what's going on now, and then going forward, right?
Yep.
And then I think the team is a bit accountable, not a ton, but they're a bit accountable to Michael Russo just because of the kingdom that he's built and the stature and his legacy
and his standing with the diehard Wild fans.
A beat writer. Yes,
as a beat writer. I mean, he really is the go-to element in terms of, you know, news and stories and really that perspective.
And so being here at Alive and Social and having an opportunity to do the Wild Wednesday show, specifically because of Jeff Dubé. I mean, Jeff Dubé is the reason that we're here. Of
course.
I've had a great opportunity to have access to Souhan and to Russo. Mm-hmm. And when I talked to them, I kind of explained where I was coming from. You know, writing for Hockey Buzz, I'm not a journalist. Mm-hmm. And not... I have a career.
Yep.
I'm passionate about what I do. I stand behind everything I write. I can be wrong. I own my stuff. But what I explain to them is I don't have any access to the team.
Yep.
So everything that I write comes from my own perspective, my ideas, my ability to take in knowledge and take in what I see and then process it.
Yep.
Right? So what I explained,
we're getting deep right now.
In general, and the reason I want to get deep is the reason I explained in general that I'm not a journalist. It changes the content of what I write, and it changes the way that people seek me out. People seek me out. They seek you out because we're willing and able and capable to write,
to express ourselves.
That maybe it's time to move on from Mikko Koivu without worrying about the backlash that comes from people that will hedge their bets on Mikko Koivu.
Yeah.
Because the reason I write about Mikko Koivu being traded is that maybe it's time to trade that guy because...
But who's going to take him? A lot of teams?
A lot of teams should be interested because...
Package him and Backstrom together, right,
I think that's a horrible contract, and quite literally his trajectory is such that it's going to be an albatross for anybody. You're going to have to sweeten the deal to get somebody to take him off your hands. And the problem is, at this point, and this is just the blunt and honest truth, we don't have enough anymore to sweeten the deal without compromising either the long-term future or something directly right now, and then that becomes counterproductive for what you're trying to do by making that culture change. So in some ways it's a catch-22. You're damned if you do and you're damned if you don't.
And that's why that's
me.
That's why I appreciate Derek, because Derek is going to say that, whereas you'll get other up-and-comers or aspiring types that will hedge their bets. And what they'll do is they'll just stay in the safe zone, or they'll write nice puff pieces all the time, right? Which I get in trouble. I get in trouble because I just say the thing that I think, right? So then, I'm specifically right now in the Wild online community, I'm rooting for a guy named Dakota Case, who's going through just a significant medical episode. He needs a heart transplant. He travels to do the heart transplant. While traveling, he gets sick with pneumonia. Now he's in the hospital. He's on I think he's on life support, or he's assisted. He's
in ICU or something.
Yeah, he's been doing better. His dad Chuck Case has been providing updates. But I meet a guy like Dakota Case, and we develop a relationship.
You met him?
Like online.
Oh, okay.
I haven't met him in person because he's in South Dakota.
Right.
Yeah.
So he's from South Dakota. He's on. He does radio. He writes. He's a passionate guy, and we develop a friendship because being a part of the Minnesota Wild on internet community and writing and creating content. Right. We're all kind of in it together.
Right.
Even if we don't agree, even if we have different styles, even if
different perspectives.
Maybe people don't want to stand next to me because I'm willing to just say the thing I think and not worry about how the relationships are affected, or Minnesota nice is very present,
right?
And passive aggressiveness is very like that's like how people conduct themselves, especially like in the hockey community. Like there's this weird like you're not allowed to say stuff because otherwise we're going to penalize you, and so what? Because I'm still going to do it.
Yeah.
And so
shots fired.
Yeah. His favorite phrase.
I wrote a blog
next to narrative.
I wrote a blog after Dakota Case had been criticized for calling into question maybe it was time to pull him as he was drowning in that Blues series, and they put up 6 goals on him.
Yep.
Right? And what he said was, well, if it was Quenneville, he would pull the trigger. Because it's he won't. I mean, basically. I mean, that's paraphrasing the tweet. Yep. And then Dakota Case gets destroyed by a lot of people on the internet, and that's how the internet works. Ballad of Billy John. You know what I mean? You pour your heart into the internet, and then people just go in the comments are like, "What a dickhead that guy is!" Snarky. Right? Yep. But he got destroyed by guys on his website, and he got destroyed by guys that he probably looks up to or he respects, and then
his colleagues effectively.
Yeah, colleagues, whatever. So then I call that into question, and I even mentioned some names. I mentioned names of people that I've been into it with because they go out of their way to, try to assassinate,
troll you and all that fun stuff.
To assassinate my character or whatever. But I mention them because I'm not a coward. I'm the opposite of a coward. Yeah. I'm willing to say
You're confrontational.
Right? And I guarantee you that those two people have been like, Dakota, get well soon. Love you long time. You know what I mean? Like, because it's so false, and there's a weird falseness to it. So when we talk about trading Mikko Koivu and we have Derek Felska on, and we provide you with the opportunity, I always appreciate it because I know that you're not going to compromise yourself, or you're not going to worry about how it comes across if that's what you truly believe. And I think that's why people seek out State of Hockey News. That's why people seek out my stuff at Hockey Buzz. That's why people seek out the Wild Wednesday podcast, because you're not going to get some watered down promo for the team that you would get on any sort of hockey radio that you get in this town.
For the most part, yeah.
For the most part.
You know, it's the criticism is only going to, it's going to go to a certain point, and then it's going to kind of mellow out, or they're going to be like, oh, we've been too hard on them.
They're going to hedge.
Yeah, they're going to hedge a little bit, because they don't want to cut off that window of a person maybe doing an interview for them or something like that.
Sure.
And well, we get that too.
Yeah.
It's business. You can't. Russo just can't blast.
No, he can't.
Somebody and then, hey, can I talk to you for a second here?
Yeah.
So.
Sure. And ultimately, Russo can do whatever he wants to do, and he chooses to do, and he's a smart guy.
Yeah.
So he
knows when to press, but also when to back off.
There's no questioning the integrity of Russo. It's just that he has to own everything that he does because he's
that's
with
his
the
living.
players.
That's his living, unlike you and I.
Yeah.
I mean,
and he's also a journalist.
Yeah. I mean, that's the other part of it.
I mean,
too.
if you hear a rumor,
we're fans.
If you hear a rumor about Harding kicking the wall.
Yep.
He has to get somebody to go on record
and to confirm it.
Whereas I can be like, I think Harding kicked the wall. I think he was mad at Matt Cook because I can just say that.
Well, it's just like this week, since I don't know if you guys want to talk about this at all, but it's just like about the revelation of Backstrom's elbow surgery.
Yeah.
He said he had to dig a little bit, and even in his blog, he mentioned he had to dig a little bit just to get somebody to confirm the report. Because as a journalist, he has to own what that is. And the fact that he had to go instead of a team source just saying, yeah, he's getting surgery, that, to me, I don't know, as a person who reads tea leaves and all that kind of stuff,
sure.
Whether it's draft reports or whatever, I read about what's both said, and I think the other important thing is what's not said. And what, from there, from my fan perspective, to me, that said, this was something that the team even felt a little bit ambushed by. And
we always end up in the same argument. We always end up in the same fight where somebody's like, well, how do you know? You don't know.
You're not in the locker room.
You're not there. But
I've had that happen many times.
Yes.
We got in a huge fight about
with a guy.
Not us. It was like, I am in the locker room.
But he and here's the thing, he is in the locker room, but don't you think you're like compromised? Don't you think you're
How can you say that?
Because you're in the locker room. Like
Right.
you have a relation. You're like best friendsies forever, kind of. Because you're the locker room guy.
Yeah.
So you're not gonna, I mean, that this happens a lot of times. You get a guy like Stoner. I loved what Stoner had happen to him, where he had an honest moment in talking about Ryan Suter playing too much,
and he was right.
Exactly right.
And then he got destroyed for it.
Oh,
and then
And
then he backtracked.
Well, maybe I was a little harsh.
But the only reason he backtracked is because in the hockey community, it's like, don't say the thing that's true, jerk.
Yeah,
and
that's something that stays in the room.
Hide. And no, don't, man. It's the same thing. The thing going on with Jonathan Drouin right now is very fascinating to me because I think it's very comparable to the same thing that happened with Jason Zucker. Yeah. If you have a guy that's that talented, but he's not getting on board with the overall team game, then you have to prove a point with him, allegedly, in the coach's mind. And that's what John Cooper's doing.
Because and just like John Cooper, a guy who led a lot of those young players to a Calder Cup with Norfolk. I mean, the same thing here. He's got his guys. Yes. He knows Tyler Johnson. He knows those people, and
Palat.
Those are his soldiers.
T.J. Brown.
Those JT Brown.
JT Brown.
Those are his soldiers, and that's who he's going to go to. He doesn't need, to be quite honest, some whiny prima donna that wants to play. He's like, this isn't your time now, and he's tried to explain that. And he bitches and moans, and you have the Canadian media like, "Wait, why aren't you playing? You're a good player." And he's like,
and that's a superstar kid too.
Yep.
And that
hurts Canada's prestige because here he is sitting.
That's a superstar kid, and it's interesting. I mean, I think the hockey community.
But the truth is, they don't need him.
No. And not only that, they're proving it to him.
They're better without him.
And you know what? This lesson being taught to him might be the best lesson that he'll ever get. Right? And
I don't think he'll get it. At least by what I'm reading out of it, it sounds like right now it's, you don't like me. I'm not.
I'd have to have more knowledge of the kid, though, man.
I don't know. I think he was told, and I think it's been sold to him that he's going to be. It'll be the Drouin and Stamkos dynasty that they want, and it's not turning out in the biggest moment that he thinks he should be a part of.
Yeah.
And you sit down during that, you might hold it against him because you might be like, hey, that's my one shot, you took it away.
So that's the same kid that was on the St. John Sea Dogs team as
Drouin?
Charlie Coyle and
Drouin wasn't in there.
Yeah, he was.
No, he was with Halifax. He's from the Halifax Mooseheads.
No, you're not. Oh, yeah, I'm thinking of Huberdeau, am I?
Yeah, you're thinking of Jonathan Huberdeau.
Okay, so I was thinking of Huberdeau. So I wanted to tie it. I wanted to tie it to Charlie Coyle. No, good. I'm glad. And see, that's why I always want to give you credit for being one of the guys in the Minnesota Wild community that does the work. Because anybody can write a top prospect piece, anybody can highlight a couple different guys in the draft, anybody can take and do draft blurbs, but nobody was exactly like balls on. Although I will say Aaron Boogie with the Noogie was a huge Alex Tuck guy.
Yeah.
And I was not an Alex Tuck guy until we drafted him, until I watched him more, until he went to Boston College.
Yeah.
And he was good in both ends.
Yeah, I mean, I'll be honest with you. I mean, it's just like everything. You can be right and you can be terribly, terribly wrong.
Yeah.
And I remember when in 2011 when we had the draft here, and we drafted Jonas Brodin.
And you were like, "What the?"
I did. I literally said that.
Front door.
And I was upset. I thought it was a horrible pick.
Yeah.
And obviously that turned out to be wrong.
Who did you want? Do you remember?
In that draft, I've been actually saying I've wanted speedy forwards for 5 years.
So
and then of course our next
you have one in
first-round
mind?
pick this year.
No, I'm saying in that draft.
That draft,
who did you want? You want me to pull it up?
Yeah, it's in there. I mean, that's the one thing about being a blogger and stuff like that. You're all documented. So someone can look me up and be like, "Well, you didn't do so well on this one." Well,
so where do we find you?
In 2010, I wanted Nino Niederreiter, and we ended up getting him anyways.
Yeah. But where do people find your work if they want to check it out?
I'm in the State of Hockey News. I've been writing there for about 8.5 years now, which seems like an eternity.
And it's you. It's your site, right?
No, it's Bloguins. It's actually a website, but I basically do whatever I kind of want to write there with my wife, Teresa Ferris. And then I also write for Gone Puck Wild for about a year.
You on Twitter?
Yes, I'm on State of Hockey News.
Facebook?
Just my name, Derek Felska.
Perfect.
Are you on Grindr?
He's on Grindr.
Proud of you.
Sure. So while Tony's looking it up here, let me ask you a question just to piggyback off the old Backstrom situation. What's the situation with him? They can't trade him now, or they can't buy him out of his contract?
They can't buy him out with him being injured.
But
he can agree to a buyout, but really the leverage is all in his control.
If he's not cleared by the doctor in this
that certain window
it's
of
a
time.
buyout window.
How come we didn't hear about this elbow injury till like 2 days ago?
And that's exactly the really the kind of the story within the story.
Yeah.
Because it seems like it came out of nowhere, and even to the Wild, they're kind of like, "What? Your elbow's injured now?"
Yeah.
And people are wondering if this was some kind of intentional act to pretty much sabotage what was pretty much a formality that was going to be a buyout of Nicholas Backstrom.
Or if this is another indication of the Wild not shutting him down when they should have, right, during the season, having the operation in the season when he was a guy that was never going to get on the ice again anyways. So is this poor handling?
Yep.
Is this Backstrom springing this on them?
By the way, I do remember who I wanted I had 5, because every year I do the same thing. I pick 5 guys, forwards, 5 defensemen, and 5 goalies. So I mean, I spread it out. I don't put it all on one dude and talk about just one guy. I talk about 15 guys, and I even talk about sleepers and steals.
I'm gonna say a couple names, and I want to see if I get it right.
It was Sven Baertschi. Sven Baertschi was the first one.
Joel Armia,
which another probably not so good.
JT Miller.
JT Miller, yep.
And then maybe Matt Pumple or something.
Matt Pumple was later, yeah.
Or Vladimir Nemesnikov.
I
agree.
Yep. Nemesnikov, I think he's with the Lightning, actually. If I remember correctly. He's in their kind of in their depth of their organization.
Were you super fired up about Zach Phillips? Go.
I was absolutely appalled.
Yes.
In fact, I even said so.
Good.
I think I said the word that we've talked about twice. I said it 4 times immediately right after the pick, and I said, what the hell are they doing? Because I watched him, and everything I saw him was a kid who was slow, very slow, and had some significant skating issues. And I'm like, why do we want to do this when we want to be an up-tempo hockey team? And I actually predicted right from the word go that I thought that this could be a very disappointing pick. And when I went on Hockey's Future about it, I remember I got, like you say, savaged. I got absolutely lambasted
because of the production
for being so close-minded that
because of just the production numbers.
He had 80 points or 95 points or whatever it was his draft year, and I'm like, he's playing on an absolutely ridiculously loaded team. They have Simon Desprez on defense. They had what's his face, Nathan Beaulieu as another defenseman. I mean, they had 5 first-round guys on one junior team.
And he played on the line with Charlie Coyle, who had left Boston University.
Yep, mid-season,
and I think the Wild just got trapped because they ended up Coyle was the guy that they targeted in the San Jose trade with Burns, and they got it right. I still wholeheartedly believe that they got it right, and I think even though Charlie Coyle has not yet proven to be a 20-plus goal scorer, he hasn't proven to be the power forward dominant top-tier guy.
Yeah.
Charlie Coyle
is more of a top 9 than a top 6.
Charlie Coyle is an NHL hockey player.
No question, yeah.
He does many different things, and I think
the question is getting it consistently.
Well, I think the thing that he's struggled with is identity and role. And some of it falls on him, but a lot of it falls on the coaching staff because he was elevated and he played top line minutes initially, and he was the guy out of the Wild organization and out of the prospects that played before Granlund, before Zucker, before anybody. And that was because of his size and his ability to fit what they needed. So he was playing on that top line with Koivu and Parise, and he was the guy that was going in and forechecking, providing a physical presence, digging out, protecting the puck, doing the little stuff.
But his switch didn't happen until we acquired him. Yeah. So he was going to Boston University, and then that freshman season, that's when things kind of fell apart internally. There was some issues. I think there was some discipline-related things, and then that kind of all unfolded, and then he ended up going coincidentally to St. John, where we already had Zach Phillips.
Well, he ended up playing with Zach Phillips, who we ended up with the San Jose pick in that Brett Burns trade, and then this kid's on the board. And then you take him because he fits what you need. He fits a need that we still have yet to fulfill, which is size skill guy that can play center
and score.
And can score, but he also he's able to be a puck carrier, puck possessor in between maybe some smaller, maybe some skill guys, maybe some speed guys that don't carry as well. And so that's still the number one need this many years. What are we? We're 3 or 4 years removed from that Burns trade that happened at the NHL draft in the Excel Center.
I remember that plain as day. I was sitting at club level.
2011, right?
2011.
So now, on the verge of this draft, I think we got to talk about kids that are going to be available to us, right?
Sure.
So at 20,
we should talk about the kids available to us after we take a quick break here from Bennett. Does that sound good, Tony and Derek?
Definitely do a break. We'll come back. We'll talk about who's going to be available at 20.
Awesome.
Just when you thought it was safe to go back online.
Just turn it on. That took a very PG direction.
Along comes this hit show.
I'm constantly burping on stage.
Hey, you heard about Madonna, right?
Twin Cities hit show with Rusty, Courtney, and Chuck.
Had she fallen to the ground and her eyes rolled into the back of her head, what would you, Tim Mahoney, have done?
I'd have tried to make out with her.
Nice. Get in line.
The Twin Cities hit show with Rusty, Courtney, and Chuck airs live daily, 9:30 to 10:30 on the Alive and Social Network.
Ever swallowed a bug or choke like Courtney on stage?
Yeah.
I meant to do this.
What are you drinking tonight, Jason?
The Minnesota Pubcast with Jason and Molly
I'm drinking a Liftbridge Hop Dish.
It's Pub Talk from a Minnesotan perspective.
I'm always really proud of where I'm from. I'm super proud of Minnesota, and I think Minneapolis is awesome. I think St. Paul is awesome. I think they're a really awesome cultural epicenter.
With great local guests.
So the other voice you hear in the room today is Jerry Fagerberg from the City Pages. Talk about the official Minnesota Tall Boy, which your piece is on the cover of the City Pages today.
It is on the cover, came out today.
Talking movies.
All right, you saw Boyhood. I need to hear what you thought.
Oh, man.
Wow.
Sports.
A guy who was undrafted knew what was coming.
And everything else you talk about at the pub.
Let's not pretend like we know what we're talking about.
Well, what do you think I do every show?
The Minnesota Pubcast with Jason McGovern and Molly Burke. Listen at mnpubcast.com or subscribe on iTunes.
We want to just find meaning in life.
And
we are back from Bennett's. Bennett's, let's take a second here, Tony, and tell people that Bennett's has a partnership with the St. Paul Saints now.
Yep.
They're running free shuttles every St. Paul Saints game. You know, just come to Bennett's, get some happy hour specials, and take that shuttle on over, right?
And basically, any event that's taking place in the Twin Cities area, Joe Bennett wants you to come here, have a meal, have a couple drinks, and then he wants to drive you to and from. I mean, one of the great things about being located where Bennett's is, right here between 35E and Grand Avenue on West 7th, is that he can get to anywhere. He can get to Target Field. He can get to the Target Center. He can get to the new Viking Stadium when it's up.
Bank Stadium. That's why we got kicked out last week, because of the Rolling Stones took over Bennett's.
The Rolling Stones fans poured in here, had a meal, which, good for them, especially if you're going to party at a Rolling Stones concert in the rain, mind you.
Right.
and so any event that's taking place, especially like the new CHS Field, which is amazing. I don't know if have you seen it, Derek?
Yes, I have.
Awesome.
I haven't been there, but I have some Saints friends that are just ecstatic about it.
And so I kind of wonder, are there a ton of minor league baseball fans? And what you realize, even the old stadium in Midway Stadium, it's an experience. This new CHS Field, I had a chance to tour it, and it is unbelievably smart how they did that field. It's a comfortable environment. It's an event. You can go out there. You can have some Coors Light, who sponsor the show.
Yeah, we even have Derek drinking Coors Light. He didn't bring us any Spotted Cow, and I'm really disappointed about that.
Well, because I would have got arrested if I did.
Oh yeah, probably. But
that's the way it goes.
Coors Light isn't as good as Spotted Cow, but it's pretty good though. Derek, they're going down.
It's not too bad. Yeah,
I love the loyalty.
The hotter the day, the better it goes down.
You're gonna be on a Wild Wednesday show, and you got Spotted Cow in your state, but you come here and drink Coors Light. There's nothing more loyal than that.
No.
And I know,
and it's all about the support for the show.
Sure.
That's really what it's all about.
He only said that half joking.
Yeah,
I was being serious.
No, Derek's a fan.
You're lucky he still talks to you after you called him a Miko Koivu memory.
I know.
What are we talking about?
He gave me the biggest eye roll I've ever seen by anybody. Usually I say dumb stuff.
You're dead to me.
But
I might have crop dusted you.
Yeah, you probably did.
He's probably a fan. He's probably a fan of your last broadcast here. Is probably how it worked.
He loved it. The Patrick and Shannon show. The Patrick and Shannon show. We crushed it. I hate you guys.
It's a real thing. Never forget.
Yeah, we'll never forget. Hashtag never forget.
Hashtag never forget. That
I break down the Wild. I'm just a fan. I'm not a blogger. I don't have a website or anything. But I'm obviously here every week for the show. I love coming down, watching. I know. I started a Twins Tuesday blog. I'm not gonna lie. So TwinsTuesday.com, just a cheap plug.
So going to
hashtag Minnesota Sports Show.
Hashtag never forget. Shannon and Patrick.
Hashtag narrative.
Hashtag shots fired.
Hashtag shots fired. Yeah. We should rip on Tony and Scott a little, or Scott and Sarah a little bit. Where the hell are they?
No doubt.
Yeah, Scott's got a meeting with air quotes.
No, actually that's Lemaire.
It must be nice to just get to not show up.
Oh, Tony, you haven't been here for a month.
What a jerk!
Now we got 2
I was
weeks in a
working.
row. I know.
Yeah, he's trying to keep the streets safe.
I know. Yeah, for
and having a child. I mean, I didn't have the child.
I guess
I just got to practice.
You had the child.
I didn't have the child. My wife had the child, but I was in charge of stuff.
Yeah.
Right?
Exactly.
That's what you're
a lot of stuff when that
happens. Well, it's fun when you came to the studio and we did those little interviews and stuff. Those were fun too.
Yes.
So.
And you know what I did? I was a jerk. So obviously you were present and you participated and you were the driving force behind the show. So I I get in the studio with Scott and Sarah. I'm like, I've been alone in this net. I wasn't alone, obviously. Patrick, you were there, and you should get credit. But
thank you. I just get made fun of. They just basically make fun of me, Derek.
That's pretty much what
just
I've
keep
heard
it to go. Sell the show to the sponsors. Drag the equipment here. Wyatt and I are busting our ass.
Do all the heart and soul work. While we just
get yelled at.
You know what the other thing? Schweitz. He was talking all that big boy stuff, and then he didn't want to come out here and face Wyatt.
Oh, I know, right?
He didn't want to come out and face Wyatt. What a jerk.
There's like a chain of command, Now you guys yell at me, I yell at Wyatt. Wyatt, we gotta find someone for you to yell at.
Wyatt's got that fire starter mentality.
Yes, or maybe you'll just start your car on fire. That might just happen.
Either way, maybe you can fix my window.
It would do you a favor. Just start fresh.
Yeah, I would like that. I'd like that. My car's a hot mess. Somebody broke into my car and was going to steal all the podcasting gear, but then they got caught. And they checked their email, my computer, and then the cops busted them. Long story.
Nice.
It's amazing they found it.
Yeah, because they checked their email on my computer. What a bunch of idiots. I wish Tony Dean would have gone over there and arrested those guys.
Oh, he would have kicked the door down.
He would have roughed them up a little bit, too.
Oh, yeah. All I ever do is care about feelings. That's all I ever do. I would have talked to them about their feelings.
Yeah.
How'd you feel when you opened his email?
That's what I try to do. I try, I take shots, right? And I'm like, are you just taking shots to take shots? Or do you actually want to engage me in conversation? And what I realize is a lot of times people don't actually want to have the conversation. They just want to say the smart, snarky, funny thing.
Welcome to the internet world, right?
Yes.
Yep. Give me the one-liner. I'm going to run away and hide in anonymity.
And there's a list of people that I would love to have them be where I am in the world at any certain time, because I would approach them and I'd be like, "Hey,
how you doing?
My name is Tony Dean.
How you doing?"
It's very good.
On-air production meeting, we should get that list and then start inviting these people down to Bennett's. Be like, "Hey, you want to talk to Tony?"
Well,
now you want to know why you've been invited? Because Tony wants to talk to you.
Tony wants to talk to you.
You know the worst part is I would invite them and then I would provide them the opportunity. I just
say what you want to say.
I don't think they would show up.
No, but
I think they would do the passive aggressively. I'm going to work on it, and then they'd be like, my boyfriend has a stomach issue,
so
and then just not show up.
Do it.
Like how you don't show up to a baby shower, but you don't want to be in girl world trouble. You know what I mean? Where you're like,
I did not know that.
I've never been invited to a baby shower.
No, I know about this because I just had a kid, right? So I know about girl politics, sort of.
And how's
most
the kid
of the time
doing?
I'm in trouble because of girl world politics.
Wow, I didn't.
Kid's doing well though, happy, healthy.
Kid is a menace. He's got
a future Tony.
He's you know what he is? He's off the charts for length. So we did a little baby hockey combine with him, and he's got
baby
huge
hockey
mitts.
Combine. What's his VO2 max?
I'm saying 74. So he's got huge mitts, he's got huge feet, and he's off the charts for length. And so hopefully he wants to play hockey and not be a dancer. Not that I wouldn't support both. But I got a daughter, so I already go to the dance recitals, and I know what that looks like.
Jeff Skinner started as a figure skater, so
sure.
So hey, there's still potential there.
Yeah, and that chick from the Mighty Ducks too. She was a hell of a hockey player.
Christy Yamaguchi, proud of you.
Hey,
she's married to North St. Paul's own Brett Hedican. So,
yes, and she's hot. I'll get in trouble. Hopefully my wife doesn't.
Yeah, she's not listening, Tony.
Nice.
Just closed circuit. I don't know.
So at 20. That was such a tangent. I'm so proud of that tangent. It was different. Last week's tangent was just trying to get Scott to poop his pants a little bit. This week's tangent was just talking about a lot of different stuff that's taking place right now, but none of it had to do with hockey, really.
No, none of it.
No, not at all.
So at 20.
At the draft party at Bennett's.
On the 26th.
26th, 7 to 9.
Yep.
Half-price burgers, Coors Light specials.
Yep, no cover until 10 o'clock.
No cover till 10, live music.
Call your shot. Who's going to be available? Who should they take?
Ooh, that's really tough. Well, in the perfect world, which it won't work out that way, Kyle Connor would be the absolute perfect pick for the Minnesota Wild. He is an absolutely dynamic goal-scoring center who's got tremendous ability to both dangle, create, and he's not just a one-dimensional guy. He plays a full 200-foot game. He plays defense. He aggressively backchecks. Unfortunately, he's going to be gone because some groups are even saying he could even be a top 5 or top 6 pick.
Where does he play?
He plays for Youngstown in the USHL. He had 70 or 80 points in the USHL, which that is no small feat. That's a tough league to score in.
And Youngstown is in Ohio, right?
Youngstown, Ohio. Yep, Youngstown Phantoms.
And I only know that because the football team, they have a college there, huh?
Yeah, the Penguins.
Yep. Okay.
Yep, that's where Jim Tressel got his start and all.
Look at how good your knowledge is. That's deep. That is deep knowledge of Youngstown, Ohio.
As a person, well, that's the history. That's the social studies teacher in me. Is that I'm full of trivial information. I can recite it pretty quickly. I would say the guy
As the boss lady shakes her head behind you.
Yes,
Proud of you.
she gets to hear it all the way home. Because I actually quiz her. Believe it or not, I actually quiz her, and I'll be like, "He's from where?" And she's like, "I don't care." Because I'll be like, "Hey, that kid, he's from Minnesota. Where was he from, Teresa?" And she's like, "I don't care, but I do." Okay,
no doubt. So Kyle Connor, right?
So Kyle Connor,
he's optimal.
Yep.
And we kind of decided that he's not going to be there.
No, he's probably going to be gone. A kid that I've seen bantered about, I haven't put him as one of my 5 kids because I really believe that the Wild need a skilled scoring centerman. That's if you want to really change what the Wild do, that's what it has to be, and that will allow you. Since we've been talking about Mikko Koivu, that would allow you then to move him down into that third line forward position,
sure,
at center.
So
because if you don't have a guy that can be, because that was always the argument. It's like, well, then who do you put there?
Yeah.
Well, you got to have somebody to you got to have somebody to move him down for. The other one is David Konechny. He's out of Ottawa 67s. Had a fantastic year.
That's where Tyler Gravovic comes from, huh?
Tyler Graovac, yeah. Tyler Graovac played for the Ottawa 67s.
Tyler Kuma as well, right?
Tyler Kuma as well.
A lot of Tylers out of there.
Yep. But this kid is a really dynamic young centerman. Problem is he's a little small. He's only about 5'10", a little over 5'10". Great skater. Willing to go into the dirty areas of the ice. I mean, he is the guy who will get his nose dirty, really powerful on his skates. He's hard to knock off the puck with that kind of low center of gravity. ISS actually has him compared to Zach Parise in terms of his motor, because if he loses the puck, he is going to be like, white on rice trying to get it back. He's going to be all over it. He's all motor, but the only little question mark with him is because of his game puts him in a lot of risk to get hit, and as a smaller guy, you always worry about one hit and becomes turns into sawdust in the boards and he's done. But he's a skilled scoring centerman. Another guy that's also been bantered about is Joel Eriksson Ek.
And he's a kid out of Sweden, huh?
Out of Fjärestad, yeah.
Is that where Jonas Brodin played?
Yes. But he played
I'm doing well right now.
Yes, you are. You sound like you really have studied here.
Don't tell people. Don't, because most people just think I just make stuff
crap up. Yep.
Yeah, exactly. I'm just the rumor mill buzz guy.
Yep, that's right. He's a kid that played Swedish Junior this year. He's a tall centerman. He's about 6'2.5", so he's almost 6'3", so he has that height you want, but he's very, very thin. He's only about 185 pounds, so he certainly has some filling out to do. At least in the film that I've seen of the kid, is the one thing that Wild fans will like, especially if you're a person that's not a big Koivu fan, he shoots first. So he is a shoot first, pass second kind of center. So he is a scorer. He looks to score. He's got a great, he's got a great wrist shot, and he looks for those opportunities. My only question in just watching him a little bit is he seems to be kind of like if you can say, a center that seems to be waiting for someone to set him up, which of course normally as a center you're the setup guy. So that's my only question about him, is like you have like a guy that has almost like a sniper mentality. Well, while you can hope that other guys get the puck to him, and while it's good that he'll pull the trigger, the question is, does he have enough on his own to be that guy? Some scouting reports love his one-on-one skills. I haven't seen it personally as much, but he's another guy that I think the Wild are probably going to be looking at least if that's what they feel. And I really think the draft as a whole is really going to reveal to us Wild fans how the Minnesota Wild see their team right now. If they feel they need to draft a center, that's in some ways, I'm not going to say an indictment, but I would say it's maybe kind of a sign that they feel that needs to change.
So,
none of these guys, of course, that where we're going to be drafting are going to be guys that you can plug in immediately. I mean, they're guys that you're going to have to probably develop 1 or 2 years before you have a chance to really see if they can do anything at the NHL level. So they're not a plug and play kind of player.
And all three of those guys that you mentioned,
yeah,
probably aren't even playing pro hockey next year, right?
Probably not.
Like, I would say in my
probably definitely
evaluation,
not actually.
In my
Connor's supposed to go to Michigan.
I'm saying in my evaluation of them, I would say that the one that has probably a shot of playing pro hockey would be the Ek Larson kid, right?
Well, yeah, Eriksson Ek. Yeah.
Eriksson Ek. I don't know why.
It's a weird name.
Yeah, and with the Swedes, I always want to add Larson because it seems like the Larsons are the good players.
Eriksson Larson.
So
Ekman Larson.
So the Ek Eriksson kid seems like the one that has a shot to come across just because he's a bigger kid. Plus, he's coming from Europe, so that they don't have restrictions on age.
No, and they also, I mean, he could still play like in like the Swedish Elite League or something like that, and that's kind of what happened with Jonas Brodin. I mean, we let him go, we let him stay in Sweden, and he played with the Elite League after his draft year, and a lot of people felt that was good growth because you're playing against men and things like that older level instead of playing against
But Brodin came over a lot earlier and was accelerated in his path to the NHL.
Yes. Because his minor league apprenticeship was shortened.
Sure.
He had the injury coming out of training camp, and then this is ironic, but I actually was at his only real appearance that he had for the Houston Aeros at the time.
Yeah.
We were playing against Milwaukee.
So you were at
I was literally at the Milwaukee Admirals game.
And Milwaukee's the Admirals, right?
Yeah, the Milwaukee Admirals. It's a farm team of the Nashville Predators, and which, by the way, I'm also a pretty good expert on the Predators and all their prospects.
Yeah.
Because I actually like the Predators a lot. But anyways, he came out there, and it was clear that he was at a level beyond everybody else. And I even remember saying to my wife, Teresa, who was at the game, I said, pretty sure this is the last game we're going to see. And of course, as we heard, people got injured, and he got accelerated, and he did not look out of place at all.
Sure.
He had such a great start out of the box with Suter and that top pairing.
You know what's weird about him is he's not a guy that really quantifies to overall perspective. Mm-hmm. Just because he's not a guy that's going to hit people and draw attention for being a tough guy.
And there's not what do you want to say, like the sexy statistics like goals and assists or anything like that.
The production numbers aren't overwhelming.
It's the subtle little things that he does. Taking the puck away and then quickly, sending it out of the zone efficiently, moving the puck, maybe holding the zone. I mean, those are the little things that don't show up on the stat sheet, and he did that consistently.
And isn't it the skating and the hockey knowledge? So right now, I would say the top three defenders that are under 23 years old in the NHL right now, in no particular order: Jonas Brodin, the kid out of Arizona, Ekman Larson.
Ekman Larson, yeah, he's amazing.
And our guy out of Tampa Bay, Hedman. And they're all Swedish. All three of those kids are from Sweden.
Yep.
And all three of those kids came to the NHL early, contributed, have been under the radar, have not gotten maybe their just due nationally because a lot of what is in their game doesn't show up on the stat sheet, doesn't show up in the highlights.
Well, with the exception of, Ekman Larson and Victor Hedman, especially at the start of the season. Victor Hedman was absolutely on fire at the start of the season.
But this is year three.
This is year three.
He's been in the NHL for 3
but he had a
years.
really good season last year, though, too.
But they didn't put him on the national team.
Nope. But he still was very successful despite that.
Yeah.
And then Ekman Larson basically made Keith Yandel expendable in Arizona. Sure. And he had another fantastic year for the Coyotes. Brodin doesn't project quite on the same level, at least in terms of offensive production, obviously, as those two do.
Although, what I will
say this:
when Brodin was been aggressive this season, specifically this season, when he's aggressive with the puck, he flashes an upside offensively.
Oh, yeah.
And he
did that last year when he had 9 goals.
I almost think playing with Ryan Suter has hampered his willingness
to go and be that guy,
to be the number one guy on his pairing.
I think the thing that hampered Jonas Brodin more than anything was getting the jaw injury.
Yeah, that was nasty.
When he got the jaw injury, he was a different player.
And it was a weird.
He was a
dump in. It was a dump in.
He was a bit gun shy.
Sure.
And we haven't seen him quite jump into the play nor sort of do the the little walk along the blue line to open up a shooting lane like he did before that injury. Before that injury, he looked like a guy that was like, hey, I can play offense. You want to see some offense? I can dangle. I can shoot the puck. I got a lot of great skill here. But then after the injury, then things kind of, he seemed hesitant to do that, and we really haven't seen that return yet. And it's amazing how injuries can do that to you, especially probably a facial injury. You think about it, you break your jaw, it changes your whole life.
Yes, and I guess my only argument is you got to empower this kid to be the number one guy.
Mm-hmm.
I think him playing with Suter has been very good.
But then you got to sit Suter.
I think Dumba and Suter belong together.
Which I'm totally in favor of.
I think Dumba and Suter belong together because Suter is going to be the safety blanket for this kid. He's going to be able to teach him on the ice.
He's already the safety blanket for Yo.
Yes, and if you give Suter Dumba.
Yo cries when Suter sits.
If you give him
more like Suter cries when Dumba sits.
Yes.
No, Suter doesn't cry. He's like Chuck Norris that way.
Suter doesn't sweat. Suter doesn't sweat because he's never tired because he can play the whole
Yo's
game.
Head shines a little brighter when Suter sits.
and so let's kind of let's wrap it up here by talking about the organizational prospects. So
sure.
What I asked of you, and I did it myself, right? What I asked of you is to put together positionally your organizational prospects, and then what I want to do is
by position,
and I want to talk about a couple of these kids because I think that this team is deep in a couple areas, and then I think that they have fatal flaws in a couple areas. And I think talking about the kids that aren't here yet or that are in the pipeline can illustrate this point. And I think
especially going into the draft.
I think Hockey Futures does a good job of this. I think that there's a couple different. I think that they do a good job of it because they have the kids organized. There's one guy that writes about wild prospects,
and they evaluate regularly by doing almost like a polling of the fans.
Yeah,
that's actually how they do the rankings.
Yes.
So it's not just one dude coming up with that list of people. You throw in your vote. I used to throw in my vote for those things, but it's just one vote.
And I also like. I would love to write for Hockey Futures and go in depth, but then they would have to facilitate me traveling to places. Otherwise, I wouldn't want to.
I think they should. I'm endorsing you right now.
And so
I vote Officer Dean.
The reason that makes it tough is that they have a guy that writes for them. His name's Peter Praska.
Yes, Praska. Yep.
And he's I believe he lives in New York. And every once in a while, I try to talk to him on Twitter. For whatever reason, he doesn't he's not very engaging, which is weird because he writes. So I wonder kind of what he has going on all the time. But I want to know in-depth details about his life.
That's a comfort level thing.
Because he writes about prospects, and I'm a prospect geek.
Well,
and so they have this one guy.
You can talk to me, Tony. I'll tell you about it.
Nice. As we invite you out and you drive from Wisconsin,
like 4 hours,
deep in Wisconsin,
from the Dells,
to be here.
I want to ask Derek a couple questions. Two questions about two players.
About Mikko Koivu specifically.
My heart will go on.
Yeah, that is a Celine Dion moment.
Again, that's like 3 shows in a row.
Shots at Schweitz.
Yep.
Yeah, no kidding. I do want to ask you about Mario Lucia.
Yeah.
What's his story? Is he going back to Notre Dame, or is he in the draft?
He's going back to Notre Dame.
So he's out.
I think
senior year.
I think the big thing that a lot of people are asking that question because for the most part, since joining Hockey East, Notre Dame has really spun its wheels. I think they've found out that Hockey East is a little deeper than what the CCHA used to be.
Yeah.
And so even if you go to Merrimack, there's a fair chance you're going to get the crap beat out of you.
Yeah.
And it hasn't been quite as easy rowing for them.
Let me ask you this. With CCHA, did some of those teams end up in what's the new WCHA?
Yes. You have like Bowling Green, Northern Michigan.
Okay.
They all ended up in the WCHA. So a couple others from the CCHA ended up in the NCHC.
Yeah, and NCHC,
and then a few, of course, ended up in the Big Ten too. You have Ohio State, Michigan State.
So that was like a Central Midwest conference.
Yeah.
And now they're in the Big East.
Now they're in the Hockey East, playing against Massachusetts and Merrimack and Vermont and Maine and the
Boston
College. Yep.
Yes.
Providence.
I watched Miracle last night.
Oh yeah,
just throwing that out there.
Awesome. Oh yeah, a bunch of Boston kids and Minnesota kids. But going back to Mario Lucia, a lot of people were asking that question. But one thing I guess I would just say is look at his brother. When Tony Lucia was with the Gophers, mind you, he was not seen as a high end player in the sense he was more of a grinder. He played a third and fourth line role for the Gophers and his dad. And I really think, I'll be honest with you, I had a ton of respect for Tony Lucia because he had, of course, all that idea that, well, you're only on the team because your dad put you on the team. And I thought he just worked his tail off all the time. In many cases, on a Gopher team that had a lot of quote-unquote stars, he was the best player each night just basically through sheer hard work. Mario Lucia is a different cat. He's a skilled sniping type of forward. The big question mark I have for him, he had another good year, relatively speaking, for goal scoring, but he's very lopsided. I mean, he is a goal scorer, and then there's not a lot of assists. So you have, I think 21 goals and 11 assists, if I remember correctly off the top of my head. My big question mark with him is, that pretty much speaks to me as a classic top six or bust, meaning there's not the versatility of being a penalty killer, and that really pigeonholes you. I mean, you're going to have to make it on the top six in that role, otherwise you're not going to make it. And the other thing that I have question with Mario Lucia, mind you, he's got good size. He's 6'3", I think almost a little over 200 pounds. I mean, he's kind of a lanky build kind of kid. Is his skating, and I'm not seeing the burst necessary to be that lanky sniper at the NHL level, and that's scary. And the other thing too is at prospect camp, which is what you have, he always ends up having to go back to Notre Dame for classes. So when you want to see him in these games to see him how he compares to even just the fellow peers of the wild prospects, he's not there.
Yes.
And I'm not saying that
he's there for the first one. He's not there for the second one.
And I'm not claiming that he's hiding or anything like that. He doesn't want anyone to see. But in some ways, he's kind of a Sasquatch that way that you heard about him, but you never see him. That's kind of what's happened with him. And if
he's
you look
a coach's kid. I mean, he's a coach's kid for the coach who's like the center of the universe for college hockey here in the state of Minnesota. I totally agree with the assessment on Lucia, except to say the difference between Lucia from last summer to this past summer is that he was more skilled with the puck, he was more aggressive, and he was able to create his own shot, which I thought was...
And that's a huge thing. If he's dependent on someone feeding him, his utility and his versatility is distinctly diminished. But if he can create his own opportunities, just like like a Nino Niederreiter, where he creates that shooting lane and he fires it, with kind of using the defender as the screen, that allows him to maybe be a viable top six forward.
And what's so interesting...
But I still don't see him as any kind of bottom six guy. He just does not have the defense in him by what I've seen.
And that's probably why he's going back to college, right? I mean,
he's got to develop it.
Being honest about it, that's why you don't have him play in Des Moines with the Baby Wild until he is able to prove that he... That was aggressive. Yeah, I think he wanted to make out with you.
That guy was not happy.
I think he wanted to make out with you a little bit.
Yeah, we met eyes contact.
That was good. It stopped my breath. I stopped breathing for a second because you're sharing a moment.
I can give him the teacher death stare if you want.
No, I don't want because maybe just maybe it's strangers in the night exchanging glances.
That's good.
Wondering in the night, what were the chances?
No, I don't know.
Give him a kiss next time.
I'm proud of you. Look at he's like, fuck you, jerk.
Yeah, I know.
What a jerk. But I didn't invent that. That happened. That happened in and out,
Yeah.
outside of me.
We shared a moment here at Bennett's, but this place is packed. I think they're running the shuttle over to the Saints game tonight, so we got a lot of people riding that shuttle. So come on down and ride the shuttle. But my second question, then I'm done.
Awesome.
Train wrecking your guys'
No, I like it.
You're not
That was
train wrecking anything.
That was a great question.
That was
good for you.
Well,
last week, homework. He's like, the biggest need for the Wild, size, skill, center. Go.
It's totally it.
Homework.
I can't stand this.
Doing homework.
We don't have a center, and then everyone wants to trade Koivu, and then what are we going to do?
This week.
Then we got Granlund.
Yep.
He needs a sandwich. We got to get him a Big Ben burger from freaking Bennett's.
He comes with Mario Lucia. Go. Because a lot of people are going to hedge their bets on Mario Lucia, right? Yep. Mario Lucia is the best player last year on the Notre Dame team. He's the coach's kid.
Right.
He's one of us.
He's one of us. Yes.
Yeah.
And then also
I'm gonna ask about one
he's
of
the
us
big
next.
guy. He's not the tiny soft guy like Granlund. I mean, he's a 6'4". He's a big guy. He's supposed to be like Tuck. These are guys that are supposed to be ready to compete in the NHL, and then maybe he doesn't translate eventually. So these are good questions. Now, what's your other question there, Disher?
No, he got.
I didn't say it.
He got my name right. He got my name
I
right.
know.
That was nice. I was just gonna. I wanted to ask about Louis Nanny, but I don't know if I'm going to go there. But I think we should. I think we should talk about Louis Nanny because it's a local guy. You know, we love the Nanny family.
And he was a Gopher commit.
Yeah, and then he uncommitted.
And then he
decommitted.
And then he talked about wanting to make his own path,
which is I totally agree with. You don't want to follow in Daddy's or Grandpa's footsteps, you know.
Yeah. And the thing about Lou Nanny, right?
Mm-hmm.
I am a Lou Nanny disciple.
Right.
I like Sweet Lou.
I love Sweet Lou.
Wasn't it awesome when we talked to him?
We had Sweet Lou on the program.
I remember hearing it.
Oh,
it was
man!
Cool. And Tony was jacked that day.
You know what?
Wouldn't be.
You know why I was so pumped about Lou Nanny is because I grew up in the Met Center. I grew up
state tournament.
I grew up state tournament. I grew up Minnesota North Stars. My
Mr. North Star, really. I mean, without question.
And he did the other thing. I'm so pumped because I'm a prospects geek.
Yep.
I'm a build a team type of geek. I'm a project a player to become what you believe they're going to, or you have to own it.
Yep.
And this guy, not only was he a NHL player, he was a coach, but then he was also a GM.
Yep.
I mean,
he's seen it at so many different levels.
And now this guy, he levies what I believe to be the most unadulterated, don't care how the team feels about it opinion at certain points, because you can't not let Lou in the building.
Oh, yeah.
So even if Lou savages you, if Lou comes out and he hits him with some Yo knows best and makes sure that they know that they didn't fix the power play and they never address the power play and they go out of their way to cater to the egos and the sensibilities and the feelings of these veterans, they're never not letting Lou in the building, man.
Yep. Well, he's effectively kind of the Wayne Gretzky of Minnesota in the sense that he's that hockey ambassador guy. Whatever he says is news.
Especially with Herb Brooks gone. Herb Brooks is that too.
Yeah, he would have been if he's still around.
Have you guys ever heard the story about when Lou Nanny went from a player to the GM?
I read it from his book. Yeah,
he was on, on a competing radio station and told the whole story about how when he went from a player to the GM, just like everything that happened behind the scenes, and it was a really, really interesting story. But what about his grandkid? Is he good or player? Is he, is he going to be like his father, who, by the way, was portrayed very poorly in the movie Miracle?
Yeah,
that little weasel guy.
Yeah, I was like, what are you doing? You're going to get killed.
Yeah.
But I will say that his grandson, after he was drafted, he went to Penticton, just like Mario Lucia did.
Right.
And Mario Lucia went to Penticton and absolutely destroyed it. I mean, he had like almost 100 points, and he was a big time scorer.
It was silly.
But Louis didn't quite have that effect.
Yeah.
And that wasn't really what he was projected to be. Even for Edina, he was more of a role playing kind of kid, a kid who worked really hard. who had a pretty good motor and was more of a grinder type
Pretty
of
good
player.
state tournament, too.
Yeah, he's part of the Edina factory.
Yeah.
And
19 goals, 22 assists in 41 points in 45 games at Pinkton.
And Penticton for the Bees.
Yeah.
And so then afterwards...
That's like Canada hockey bed,
but
right?
That's
too?
British Columbia Hockey League.
But like in
Junior
comparison, I think like Mario Lucia had like 105 points or something.
95 or
95,
something like that.
yeah, just unbelievable.
And like 45 goals or whatever.
So it's like half the production.
Yep.
So that's why Mario Lucia's on the top of this list and Louis Nanny's on the bottom of this list?
Yep.
Okay.
And then then he decommitted from the Gophers, which of course was news. And so then he committed to RPI and the ECAC. And the Engineers have had okay teams, kind of back and forth. And what ended up happening is he started off really strong. He actually was RPI's leading scorer right out of the gate. And then he ended up getting hurt. And then he kind of dropped by the wayside. And when he got back, he kind of like it was at Penticton, things kind of started slowly again. And RPI did not really go too far in the ECAC. And so he had a pretty mundane year overall. I think overall his offensive part of his game is not anything really to get excited about. It's really about whether he can make it in some kind of energy kind of line, kind of, more of a, almost even more of like a Clutterbuck style kind of player. The guy will knock people around, get on the forecheck.
I hated Clutterbuck so much.
What?
I didn't like him. I don't know. He just had all these his stats were just inflated.
I
with
like
all
people
these
that
hits,
stir stuff up like that.
Just hitting people randomly.
So you love
that aren't even in the
Koivu, you
play.
hate Clutterbuck.
Yeah,
Wow.
and Preece's Rudy. So basically, Derek's going to beat me up on the way out, but
Nice.
And he's
That's
probably
fine.
not coming back for the draft show now, June 26th, 7
No, he's definitely coming back.
I would not miss that ever. I really wouldn't.
Okay, good.
I'm so looking forward to it.
So what's your plan for the draft show? You're going to break down all these players. You're going to bring your numbers. You're going to bust out that binder back there.
Yeah, I can bust that out. I can give you all kinds of anecdotes, like from NHL scouts and things like that. And I think the one thing about like for anybody that's out there that wants to be a draft junkie is you got to read. It's like being a good historian. You got to read multiple sources and see what they agree upon to find the real truth about a player. And then also, I've said this before earlier in the show. Also, kind of read into what they don't say about a player.
Right.
So. A lot of people, they get excited. They'll see a person's big. They'll be like, "Oh my gosh, he's like 6'5",
like me with Koivu."
He's gonna crush people. Well, see, that's a great disagreement. You talked about him being a big guy and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Well, my first thing is, why don't you play big?
Right. Angry Koivu does.
Yeah. And why do we have to wait for angry Koivu for him to be physical
score
and knock
dirty
somebody
goals?
around?
Why don't you go in the paint?
Yeah. Why don't you battle along the wall instead of sitting there cherry picking like a little 5'10" guy?
Yes.
And that just drives people like myself.
Why don't you just destroy
crazy.
somebody one time?
Yeah, just get pissed. And
Dustin Bufflin picks up Granlund.
Well, not only that,
and mashes him into the boards.
So you get.
Why don't you be the big brother?
You just talk about it. Throw a punch.
Yes.
You pansy.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's about me getting pissed off.
I know.
That's about me getting about as pissed off as I can without really throwing things down. But I'm telling you, I mean, you got to read those different scouting reports and find out what they're doing. So
yeah, you got to. But don't hate Koivu that much. He's going to be here for a while.
Well, no, I would love if Koivu was traded to somebody for anything. Be
As we
honest.
take a picture.
Just because it's time to move on.
Yeah, definitely.
And the reason it's time to move on is because you trade this guy and it's a shot across the bow of what has become
the veteran group,
the status quo, man.
Yep.
I mean, like, being honest about it, when we talked about the power play never getting fixed, right?
Yep.
And when we talked about them never addressing the power play all season, a lot of the reason it didn't get addressed is because nobody took into issue the play of Jason Pominville, of Ryan Suter, of Mikko Koivu on that top power play. Because, being honest about it, Mike Yeo, and Yeo knows best, has a lot to do with him keeping his job, him keeping good with the relationships that he's developed.
And that's why those comments after the season, especially from Suter, and then to a lesser extent, Vanek talking about, well, gosh, I wish they would have done something about the power play. And you're like, oh, hello, you were the problem.
Well, and but then
comes off kind of rich.
But then Chuck Fletcher says, "Well, this is definitely not Andrew Brunette's
problem." Yeah, exactly.
But Andrew
Andrew
Brunette is directly responsible for the power play because
unless we're not aware that he's not.
That's his job.
He is the coach, right? I think he's the coach.
You would think that he's the one in charge of the power play.
Yeah, but not really. So
maybe not.
This is awesome.
I mean, no. You know what this is? I mean, this is hockey politics, and it's really leveraging and it's positioning, and so in the same breath, I'll always give Chuck Fletcher credit for
making the moves that he felt needed to be made
and being able to maneuver situations without showing his hand.
Yeah.
Even when
making and
it's just unbelievable. Like,
well, especially when you compare it to the previous administration.
You know, the
previous regime of Risebrough being too gun shy,
or Risebrough not being able to get out of his own way of his ego.
Yeah.
And then him adding these players and completely like avoiding American players to prove a point, or trading away draft picks and then laughing it off,
or not
to add guys,
or not just being like, okay, you're not going to take the contract, Gabrick, I'm trading you now.
Yeah, or the team needs something and then you fucking trade for Chris Simon and then you don't even play him. Like, are you kidding me?
Or Dominic Moore.
Yeah, but Dominic Moore ended up contributing.
But we didn't play him.
I know. No, I know. But you traded for him and you're proud of yourself.
Yep.
Yeah,
you threw away a third-round pick to play him like 2 games. Congratulations.
That's what's weird to me, and I feel it a bunch, is that there's this weird hockey politics where people get uncomfortable when you call into question or you don't go with the flow. And there's certain players. I would say Evander Kane is one of those who falls victim to not going with the flow and being who he is.
Yep.
And not being apologetic for being who he is. So then,
especially with a team that seemed to be, okay, we're turning a corner here. We're are you on board or you're not? And he's like, I'm being me. So, it's I'll let you see that. My wife's sending me messages.
Yeah, and your wife, right, should get credit for writing some of the most potent ether.
Yeah.
And I say ether. Ether is a hip hop term, right?
Yeah.
Ether comes from Nas responding to Jay-Z.
Yep.
In a fashion
this is way more rap than I've ever heard.
But the reason I want to explain the term ether is you take somebody who's created this elaborate reality, and then you take all of that knowledge in, and then you're able to process it, and then critically break it down and destroy the fallacy in it.
Yep.
And when I see your wife at
well, for her, it'd be at Minnesota24. That would be her on Twitter.
At Minnesota24.
Totally criticizing Prince Valium.
Yes.
And Captain Clydesdale, as she lovingly calls them.
Yes.
And relentlessly tweeting poor Pat Micheletti over and over again.
And when I see that happen, right?
Yep.
I know that it can't just be dismissed. Like when I destroy somebody, they're like, "Oh, that's the hockey buzz guy."
Yep.
Bah bah bah. But they have to play a different game of politics when they get ethered by your wife, and that's why this summer, and going forward, right?
Yeah.
I hope to provide the opportunity for her to get together with Sarah Shealy and maybe Allie Baker from The Hockey Writer and a couple other Shannon, a couple other people in the hockey community, ladies specifically, who see the game how they do, are able to generate an opinion, are able to follow, are able to come to their own conclusions and create content, which I think is amazing.
I will say one thing about female hockey fans in general, and really the thing that gets often forgotten is that it's really a misnomer that we continue to say female hockey fans. They're hockey fans.
Sure.
And they follow the team just as much as men do.
Sure.
And and I can tell you from the people I've met through Twitter and things like that, they're the ones tweeting stuff. They're the ones retweeting and favoriting things that are said on there just as voraciously as male tweeters do. And they definitely have viewpoints about who's being basically a pussy on the ice and who's not. And most part, I would say women seem to be far more, I think they're far more critical oftentimes than even guys are.
And I think they're right.
Yeah.
And when I say female, what I'm really saying is smart.
Yep.
Because I have a following on Twitter that is like 1,300 people, and there's no chance that 1,300 people pay attention to the shit that I say on Twitter.
Oh, they do.
But I have no, I don't think so. I mean, I hope not, because then I would get credit for being wrong a lot more than I'm right. But the ladies that follow me on Twitter, that share my stuff, that hold me accountable, that are a part of this fan base, that create content, that read my stuff, that listen to the podcast, they don't ever hesitate to provide me with examples of where I'm wrong, where I'm right, how tonight's game,
whether they agree with me or not.
Man. And they all have a distinctly unique perspective of what takes place on the ice, and beyond. It's not the stereotypical easy. I like this guy because he's hot. Like I think
hair.
What a fallacy. That was number 4.
That was number
I lasted so long. What a fallacy that especially like in the internet content game, there's so many talented women.
Oh yeah,
talented, smart, capable, voracious.
And I just like to say too, we really embrace like diversity on the Alive and Social Network. If you listen to terrestrial radio, there's no women on any of the sports shows. There's no producers. There's no women like contributors. There's
local
nothing.
radio.
Yeah, it's ridiculous, and that's part of the thing. We're bringing on board a women's fantasy football show. We're bringing in some women. We're trying to get women on the Wild Wednesday show and the Twins Tuesday and the Minnesota Sports Show. We just think that men, sure, they know sports, but women know sports just as well too, and we really embrace that. So
yeah, I mean, I can tell you this from my own personal perspective. I think anybody, especially if you watch a lot of hockey and things like that, your wife chimes in on things.
Totally.
Or your girlfriend, they chime in and they let those people have it when they think someone's playing like a pansy or whatever. I still remember the first time, not that you need to know like my relationship history, but I still remember the first time I took Teresa to a hockey game.
Yeah.
It was a high school game between Bloomington Jefferson and Elk River, and oh my God, I thought I was going to get kicked out of the arena because she was yelling at the officials. She's throwing F-bombs down and runs a bunch of 10-year-olds, and I'm like going, oh my God, Teresa.
My God.
And I'm like, that's really how that's really who I found out who I had.
Love.
Hashtag never forget.
Call that love.
Exactly. And
call that boss lady.
Yeah,
Hashtag boss lady.
She is,
what are we talking about?
I knew I had a person that was willing to chirp, and that's, for my family, that's an important thing. You better be able to chirp because you're going to get chirped at. So you better chirp back, otherwise you're not going to have respect.
I think the other point, too, is that, hockey families and the hockey community, right?
Yeah.
It's unique. And there's no pretending to be involved or, this is
there's
passionate.
No half-assing.
No, this is a passionate thing. And so.
You're all in.
The Dean family, the Felska family, the Bennett family.
Yep.
We're hockey people. We're hockey families.
You don't apologize for it.
And so what I was trying to explain to my wife about being a hockey parent, because, we have...
Because Derek's going to be an absolutely stud
long
forward.
child.
We have... with
big feet.
We have a kid who has
he's gonna
mitts.
Be James Shepard.
Yeah, I know, right?
Man.
Sorry.
I mean, it could be. I would love him no matter what.
Okay, I'm sure you would.
Nice. But being a hockey family, I mean, you're pot committed. I mean, this is a lifestyle. I mean, you look at the reason I steadfast defended a kid like Jason Zucker. He went across the country.
Yep.
Was by himself.
Yep.
Was
trying to live his dream and make it work.
And his family all in.
Yep.
His family's all in.
Yep.
So that's why I'm one of the biggest apologists when it wasn't going good for Jason Zucker.
Yep.
I come out on this side being able to smile and know that I knew that this is a kid that is going to fulfill his potential, because this is a kid that's able to travel across the country, have the support of his family, have everything center around this gift that he has,
and his dream.
And he worked his ass off, man.
Oh yeah,
and that like I think that's what you look for in hockey players. You look for talent, but you look for somebody that's completely committed, that's going to work their ass off, that's going to compete,
and that's
live to compete.
And that's exactly why people love Parisi so much, and even Zucker to that matter. Wild fans love Zucker because they see the enthusiasm and love for the game in everything he does. And apart from the fact that he's got great skill, great speed, and things like that, they see it. They can see that energy, and that's something that we can all relate to.
And being honest about it, I love that the Minnesota Wild does the Hockey Dads trip, and I'm jazzed up to have my little one eventually participate in hockey. The backbone of hockey is hockey moms. I mean, literally. And it's just it's a different society.
They'll tell you who's playing well and who's not.
No doubt.
Yeah.
And if I was a scout, I would go to the moms, to be honest.
Yeah, you got to talk to the moms.
We have gone over our time budget for this week, and what I wanted to do is I wanted to make sure that we took advantage of having the Felskas in town here at Bennett's from Wisconsin.
Yep.
Thank you for coming out. We didn't have Scott Schweitz here. We didn't have Sarah Shealy here.
Schweitz.
We definitely had a lot of Wyatt here.
We had a lot of
We
Wyatt
had a ton of Wyatt here.
But Tony, we should just take a second to thank Joe Bennett and Megan Bennett and the Bennett's family. They supported us all year. We're gonna be making some changes to the show here coming up. After the draft party, we're gonna kind of take a little time off. We'll still have shows and stuff, but we should just talk a second about the commitment that the Bennett's made to this program and the Minnesota Wild, and the NCHC was our sponsor all year, and just kind of take a second to thank the Bennetts for what they've done for us, and we appreciate everything they've done.
I always want to make sure that the Bennetts get credit for being a staple in the hockey community here on West 7th, and moreover, Joe Bennett and his wife.
I would say it resonates family, and that's really what hockey's all about. And you can see it when you walk in the room. It feels like you're at home.
And beyond their business,
it's a hockey home.
This is a place where people come to be a part of a community.
Yep.
I've always felt so fortunate to come into contact with them, because one of my mutual friends started working here and became a part of their family. They welcomed me in. Not Scott. Although Scott is my family now. I claim Scott.
He's part of the Wild Wednesday crew.
I hope he claims me.
He doesn't.
No. What a jerk.
Yeah, he is a jerk. But everyone here, thanks for supporting the show all year. And
thank you to Bennett. Stop by Bennett's. If you are going to an event in the Twin Cities, come out here, have a steak, have a burger, have a bison burger, have an appetizer.
Chop salad, baby.
Drink some Coors Light, take the shuttle. Joe Bennett will drive 127 miles an hour.
Yep.
127 miles an hour. Hey, thanks, Derek. Where can we find your stuff again? Last shot?
State of Hockey News and also Gone Puck Wild.
StateofHockeyNews.com?
Yep, StateofHockeyNews.com.
Okay, and check them out at Twitter at
State of Hockey News.
State of Hockey News, easy enough. But we know Tony Dean's at Hockey Buzz, right? But what's your Twitter handle? You never give out your Twitter handle.
My Twitter handle is Tony Dean HB.
HB, yep.
Don't follow me on Twitter. You'll be mad at me because I say the stuff you don't want to hear.
That's why I do it.
Thanks, everyone. We'll see you next Wednesday right here from Brent Bennett's. Come out for the draft party June 26th.
June 26th. In the building.
In the building, 7 to 9 p.m. We got live music. We got great food specials. We got great Coors Light specials, and we'll take good care of you. We'll let you on the air. It's gonna be a Rube cast, basically. Let all sports rubes just like me come out. Derek's a sports rube. Tony's a sports rube. Sarah's a sports rube. Scott's a sports rube. And special thanks to our buddy Mr. Dubé too. We miss you, buddy.
Yep.
Bennett's Shop and Rail.
Yep.
Tony, did you notice about a week after